Okay, we might make a quick start. We've got a bit to get through. Firstly, I want to thank everybody for being here, wherever you are in the world. If you're in England, it's a bit rainy, but thank you for choosing to spend your Tuesday night, Tuesday afternoon with me. And I hope I can share something of value, something that will be useful to you. So before I begin any Ayurvedic workshop, talk, even any of my treatments, I always say a few prayers because this is not my knowledge. I am just an instrument. I am just sharing it on from the Ayurvedic, the authors of the texts, my previous teachers and mentors. So it's only fair that I pay my homage, my gratitude, and my respects to them. So I invite you all to just close your eyes, fold your palms, and together we can pay gratitude to any of our previous teachers, whether it's in Ayurveda or in any other sphere of life. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namami Dhanvantarimadi Devam Surasurairvandita Pada Padmam Loke Jararubhayam Mrityunasham Dhataramisham Vividhoshadinam Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Okay, so we will make a start. If you have any questions throughout the night, please type them in the chat box. I have a friend that's going to sort of collate the questions because if there may be some similar questions that people have, and she will ask me at the end via chat. So if anything comes up during the webinar, type it so that we've got something to reference back later. But I'm just going to share my screen. Perfect. Everyone can see the slideshow. You can just give a quick thumbs up. Yeah, perfect. So today we're going to cover a very important and interesting topic of understanding spring with the help of Ayurveda. So the few things that we're going to cover today are the theory of spring according to Ayurveda, what foods to favor and avoid in spring, lifestyle practices to adopt, and the best practice for spring, which is a bit of a cleanse. Now, we are human beings are meant to live in harmony with nature. And just like we don't wear the same things all year round, we shouldn't eat the same foods or have the same lifestyle practices all year round. We should listen to what nature's trying to tell us, what she's telling us through her seasons, through the different phases of life, and then eat and live accordingly. So if you have come across Ayurveda before, you will know that everything in the world is understood according to the 5 elements, the 5 elements of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And they comprise everything that we see around us, everything that's inside of us. Now, what the traditional Ayurvedic authors they did is they saw them and they recategorized them into 3 energies, which many of you will probably commonly know as Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata is a combination of air and ether. Pitta is a combination of fire and water. And Kapha is a combination of earth and water. People commonly think those 3 energies, or doshas as we call them, are just inside of us. And a lot of people, when they first come across Ayurveda, they'll be like, oh, I'm very Vata, I'm very Pitta, I'm very Kapha. This is true. But when you start to see these energies at play, you will see them all around you, in the environment, in certain times of the day, in certain foods that you eat, in a situation, in something that your friend does, a characteristic or tendency that they have. You will start to see those energies everywhere. So today I invite you to look at the world with a different set of glasses, with the Ayurvedic lens, so you can see these 3 energies at play everywhere. Now, when we first are introduced to these energies, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, they're foreign words. For people that don't know Sanskrit, I never grew up with it, so I definitely don't know how to speak it. But Vata, Pitta, and Kapha can seem they are foreign. That's the best word I can use to describe it. But when we understand that each of these three energies has a set of describing qualities that are simple adjectives. When we, learn English grammar, they're just simple words and they're used to describe anything that is Vata, anything that is Pitta, anything that is Kapha. And when we start to understand these three energies as the particular set of qualities that is ascribed to them, it's easier for us to see Vata, Pitta, and Kapha everywhere around us. Now, understanding those three energies and what qualities are under each of them is a whole nother topic and a whole nother webinar. But for today's purpose, we want to understand the qualities of spring. And the qualities of spring is the time of Kapha. And this is best understood through these particular qualities that you can see on the screen. Of anything that is heavy, of it being slow and dull, of being cold, although this quality is sort of decreasing in spring, being oily, dense, and sticky or cloudy. Now, a very quick overview so you can understand how the seasons have different energies associated with them. Spring has the energy of Kapha associated with it. The energy of Kapha is at its peak. As it starts to decrease and spring starts to go into full effect, we then move into summer. During summer, the energy of Pitta is predominant and it starts to increase. It's at its height in summer. As summer goes into autumn, Pitta starts to decrease. Pitta is a combination of fire and water. And the cumulative effect of a lot of heat is to dry things out. So that water element is actually dried out. And then we get autumn, which is characterized by the energy of Vata. And you can see in nature all around you, the leaves fall, you start to feel drier, dry skin, constipation, crackly joints. So then autumn is best described by the energy of Vata. As autumn progresses to winter, Vata slowly increases. And in winter, we get the introduction of Kapha, that very heavy energy. And then as winter reaches its peak and then comes into spring, again, we have that Kapha come around, and it's a cycle around the year. The seasons have certain energies that are predominant, and we can use these energies to guide us into what we do every day, into what we eat, how we live, what lifestyle practices we adopt. So now, two fundamental principles of Ayurveda is that how do we apply these qualities? Firstly, we should understand that like increases like. So if we are in a time of Kapha, if we are in the spring season, which is already prevalent with these particular qualities, heavy, slow, dull, cold, oily, dense, sticky, and we do things or we eat things which increase those qualities, it's going to put us in a state of imbalance. Because outside in the external environment, those qualities are already heightened. And if we do things to increase those qualities of the energy inside of us, it's like Kapha inside, Kapha outside, Kapha overload. So then we have to work on the principle that opposites balance. So to counteract that excess Kapha in the environment around us, we have to bring into our lives practices that are the opposite of the qualities of Kapha. So we should look to introducing more light, sharp, warm, dry. By liquid, I mean more diluted, so not so concentrated, and clear things. Now, it can seem very, what's the word? Vague, and I don't want to say like wishy-washy, to try to tangibly feel these qualities. But once you start really taking notice of what's happening in the environment around you, once you start taking notice of the foods that you're eating, what effect it has on your body, you will see those qualities at play. For example, if I were to describe pepper, pepper is sharp, pepper is strong, pepper is hot. Whereas if I were to describe vanilla, Vanilla is a bit more mellow. It's sweet. It's a softer taste. Similar with summer. Summer has this very intense, sharp, and hot energy. When you look at autumn, you will use different words to describe it. Even within people, you might know somebody that's quite sharp in their mind, quite quick-witted. Whereas you might know someone that's, they take a little bit more time to get things and they're a bit slow going. So Ayurveda is a lot, and you'll hear me say this a lot through my social media, but it's about listening to your body. It's about listening to nature and just being more in sync, being more in tune with it. So how do we quantify, or how do we tangibly bring these qualities into our life in the spring season? So in terms of a spring diet, in winter, your appetite is at its peak because the colder weather outside, your internal digestive fire is roaring stronger, it's roaring brighter to keep yourself warm amidst a cold outside. And because of a stronger digestive fire, you have a bigger appetite and you're better able to metabolize heavier, richer, more comfort foods. And if you notice in most cultures around and traditions around the world, winter foods are heavier. They're creamy, they're cheesy, they're baked, they're a little bit rich, they're hearty. That's what we associate with winter because we have a stronger digestive fire. Now, as that kapha energy starts to arise, the outside weather starts to become warmer, our internal digestive fire, it also reduces. And so we might notice a decrease in our appetite. Honor this with smaller, lighter meals than winter. Look at reducing your portion size. Look at reducing, if you're someone that can easily skip a meal and it serves you better, maybe you have, a really light dinner, a light breakfast, and a big lunch. But honor your appetite by having smaller and lighter meals in spring. Now, in springtime, we want to favor the bitter, pungent, and astringent tastes. And these are predominant in these particular fruits, veg, grains, all of these food lists that I've got. So within fruits, look at what's seasonal. Your apples, pears, apricots, berries, pomegranate, prunes, cranberries. With berries, we've got all types of berries, raspberries, strawberries, blueberries, cherries. Look at what's seasonal. So you'll see the last line, focus on what's local to where you live. In a world of globalization, industrialization, we can get everything all year round. Try to do a little bit of research. Look at local farmers markets. Look at, speak to your neighbor. We live on a street with quite elderly neighbors, and she'll always talk about life, when they moved here in the 1960s, what was available. You can ask them, what was traditional to eat in spring? With vegetables, artichoke, asparagus, leafy greens. So your leafy greens, you've got mustard greens, chard, spinach, rocket leaves. All of these are really good at increasing that bitterness and astringency in your diet. Bitter melon, different varieties of gourds, cabbage, green beans, radish, celery, green papaya, cauliflower, and broccoli. You want to have lighter and easier to digest grains like amaranth, barley, buckwheat, millets, quinoa, rice, and rye. Most legumes are really good for the springtime because they're quite astringent in taste. And mung beans are considered the king of lentils and legumes. So they're the best to have, especially during this time. Dairy, it's actually best to avoid during this time. If you want to have some dairy, have cottage cheese, goat's milk. Goat's milk is quite astringent. If you think about what a goat eats, people say, I think goats eat anything. They can digest everything. So their milk is quite astringent and tart compared to cow's milk. So that's a great alternative for spring. Buttermilk and ghee. And then with sweeteners, you want to introduce honey, maple syrup, molasses, and most spices are great for spring. But try to look beyond this as a list of spring foods. I don't want you to go home and print out this list and put it on your fridge and be like, okay, I'm only eating this for the next month or 2 months. Life is a lot more about lists. When people first get into Ayurveda and they try to figure out, oh, I'm Vata, I should just eat Vata foods. Ayurveda is not about that. It's very much beyond that. Focus on what's local to you. Focus on what's local to where you live, your region. Traditional foods from your heritage that were made during spring. So, if you're from the Indian culture, what was made around this time by your ancestors? Say, what did your grandmother make in India? And also what suits your digestion. So a few other dietary considerations and applications. So focus on smaller breakfasts, dinners, and big lunches, like I mentioned before. Try to avoid snacking throughout the day. This helps you to honor your appetite, because sometimes over snacking, we actually don't listen to our appetite and we're suppressing it. A lot of times we eat not because we're hungry. We eat because we're bored, something looks good. We should eat now because we won't get time later. A variety of other reasons. So try to listen to your appetite, listen to your hunger, and honor it. When transitioning into new spring meals, make swaps with ingredients first. So rather than, completely stop having soups, have a spring soup. Introduce more vegetables which are seasonal to this time of the year. Maybe you want to do an asparagus, celery, and rocket soup. I don't know, but do swap ingredients first. And if you're new to an ingredient and you don't know how it's going to suit your body, especially flours, you might want to do half and half. So where in winter, wheat was a really common grain to have and a really good grain to have, and in spring, you might want to introduce more buckwheat into your diet. In the first couple of times that you use buckwheat, do half buckwheat and half wheat in your recipe, whatever you're making. And then slowly you can transition into full buckwheat. Do it gradually. Focus on changing, breakfast for a couple of days. Then once you're ready, look to modifying lunch and dinner. Don't do it all at once. Whatever change you make within transitioning to this spring season, it should be gradual. And focus on meals made at home with whole food ingredients. Gradually reduce your dependence on processed, frozen, canned, and ready meals and ingredients. But do what works for you. Ayurveda is not all or nothing. If you're someone that, eating canned food means that you're cooking the meal at home, that's fine. Keep doing it, but see where maybe one meal in the week, you don't use canned food. You try to make it fresh and do that for a couple of weeks and then increase to 2 meals in the week. We should try to if we want to improve in any sphere of life, whether it's our health, our education, our business, whatever, we should always try to stay in the stretch zone. So there's the comfort zone, the stretch zone, and the stress zone. The comfort zone is where everything's going really well. We can sit back, relax, don't have to worry about it. It's not hard for us to do. The stress zone is where we're being pushed too much. We can face burnout quickly. We're not comfortable with it. It's too painful. And the stretch zone is that happy medium where we are pulled just a little bit. Like, if you do yoga or you do stretching, it hurts a little bit, but it's a good type of hurt. So you want to be in that stretch zone to still have comfort and ease in your life, but also constantly work on improving yourself bit by bit. So a few things that we need to remember. Spring is heavy on the kapha energy, this earthy, heavy energy. But what if you have a predominance of vata in your natural mind-body constitution? So how do you know if you have a lot of vata in your body and mind? If you have a lot of the qualities of air and ether. In your mind, you can tend to be a bit of a scatterbrain. One of the best quotes to explain a vata mind is, I have that quote that says, I have 17 tabs open in my internet browser and I have no idea where the music is coming from. That is what characterizes a vata mind. You like to do everything fast. You think fast, talk fast, move fast. People are always telling you to slow down. You might suffer from constipation, dry skin. I just watched a video before by Nidhi Pandya. Some of you may follow her on Instagram with the handle My Ayurvedic Life. And she said, how do you know you're in a state of depletion? She goes, your nose boogers and your earwax, they're crusty. So that's another sign. If you have crusty nose boogers or earwax, you need to lubricate and oil yourself a little bit more. So there's lots of different signs of if you have a lot of vata in your body. And actually, most of the world is on vata overdrive. We want everything now. We want everything conveniently. We don't want to wait. Everything is, how can I cut corners? What shortcut can I take? What's the next life hack to give me more time? That's what our world is like, and it's just on vata overdrive. The problem arises because a lot of the diet and lifestyle practices of spring focus on minimizing that heavy, moist, grounding, and earthy energy of kapha. And doing this will likely aggravate and increase your natural vata tendencies. So if you look back, so if we have to increase the light, sharp, warm, not so much, but dry, liquid, and clear qualities in what we eat and how we live, they're some of the qualities that characterize vata. And if you've already got a predominance of air in your body, air and ether, doing these practices can put you over the edge. So what do you do? Be personal when you apply the practices recommended in spring. So all of the foods that I gave you before, they have that drying quality. So if you're somebody that is already dry on the inside, maybe you don't add everything on that spring list into your diet. Or when you are introducing some of those flours or grains or vegetables, have lots of fats and oils when cooking them so you don't dry yourself out. Movement is good, but don't overdo it. Focus on the warming quality in your diet and lifestyle because this helps balance both kapha and vata. So you want to address first your current state of health because a lot of people, the spring seasonal guide and recommendations work best for people that are in a state of good health. Unfortunately, for most people, we're in a state of imbalance due to many, many different reasons because of what we eat that may not suit us, experiences that we haven't processed properly, chemicals or pollutants in the air, many, many reasons we are in a state of imbalance, some of us to a worse degree than others. So first of all, address your current state of health. Fix that, whatever's going on in you first, and then look to adopt the seasonal guides. Then look at the weather on the day. A perfect example is today. Spring is meant to be light, rain, dry foods like that. It's raining. It doesn't look like a spring day. So if it's not characteristic of the weather of the season, then live and eat according to the day. If you have a rainy day in summer, and you're meant to have cold, light foods, you don't feel like having that in a rainy day. You feel like having something comforty. You feel like having something fried almost, something warm and hot just to stay cozy in the rain. So eat according to the season of the day. And then work with local climate variations and available produce. So if you're in India, you're probably well into, starting summer. Mangoes have started to come, so spring guidelines may not work for you. But if you're in England and spring may take another couple of weeks to really come into effect, you have to really be a bit more attuned to what's happening around you. And then once you're in a state of good health, then you can follow a seasonal guide and routine and have it work for you. Foods to avoid. Watery or heavy vegetables like avocados, root vegetables, squash, and zucchini. Any heavy or overly sour fruits like oranges, bananas, pineapples, figs, dates, coconuts, and melons. And minimize dairy, especially yogurt, cream, cheese, and ice cream. If you do want to have milk, have it spiced with dry ginger powder and turmeric. I often give this example. It's a little bit graphic, but it helps. So kapha in the body, one of the signs of kapha in the body is a lot of mucus. And if you had a bowl of mucus in one hand and you had avocados, bananas, or cream or cheese or cottage or dairy, and you sort of closed your eyes and put both hands in both bowls, how would they feel? They would feel similar. So having foods that feel that texturally they are like kapha, they're only going to increase kapha inside of you. So if you don't know whether a food is what it is, whether it's vata, pitta, or kapha, tangibly feel it. Is it, cold? Is it mucusy? Is it sticky? Is it heavy? Is it dense? And then it's easier to see, what to avoid and what to favor in this season. Especially if you're suffering from a cold, if you have a lot of mucus in your body, stop avocados, bananas, and dairy, and you will notice a big difference in the reduction of mucus. It really has a big impact. And then avoiding heavy, oily, or fried food. Spring specials. So some extra, I guess, mini recipes or home remedies to help give yourself a little bit of a boost this spring. Fresh ginger and mint tea to boost your digestion, especially when it feels sluggish. Fresh ginger, black pepper, and cinnamon tea for digestive strength. And using honey as a sweetener. Honey has this scraping effect. In Ayurveda, it's called lekana. And it has this ability to scrape excess toxins, excess mucus out of the body. So it's great during the season. It's great for if you're suffering from a cold, a cough, any excess mucus in the body, have honey. But always remember, don't heat honey. Just add it to a warm drink. Never cook with it or bake with it or, subject it to heat. And a little spring spice mix. Again, you'll get all of these slides later, so you don't need to worry about copying them down, but you can mix all of these seeds and dried spices and herbs together and use it in your cooking, roast vegetables with it, season your lentils or rice or anything like that with it. And it's a good little mix to have on hand during spring. Now, in terms of your lifestyle, you want to move more because we're coming out of the dormancy of spring, of winter. Winter, everything was in hibernation. You think about animals, they're sleeping. You think about the plants, they don't grow anything. The leaves, they shed off and they're lying there dormant. We have to shake off that stagnant energy with more movement. So do as much vigorous and sweat-inducing exercise and do something that's comfortable to you. Just because I said do something sweat-inducing, don't go to a HIIT class if you've never done that before. Anything that will get your heart pumping, your blood circulating, and you breaking out into a little bit of a sweat. Dry brushing or massage with dry powders. So you can get a raw silk glove and sort of dry brush your body, or you can get one of those body brushes and just gently brush your body before you have a shower. Your limbs always in long strokes and joints in circular motions. There are different dry powders called udvartanas that you can use. Make sure you're standing in the shower because it gets really messy. But before you have a shower, just again, rubbing the dry powders on your body before you get wet. And the friction, the heat, it helps to liquefy any of that excess kapha that's been stored over winter and shed it for spring. A very simple udvartana you can use is you can get whole green mung beans, grind it up into a powder, and just use that. I remember a lot of Ayurvedic Panchakarma centers in India, instead of having soap in the shower, they will just have green mung powder. And they use that. They encourage all their clients to use that to cleanse their body with. Then you want to try steam and sauna to open up the pores and channels, get yourself sweating as well. If you're using a steam or sauna in a gym or somewhere else, make sure you take a little wet towel, rinse it out in cold water and cover it on your head because you shouldn't really get your head too hot. Many Ayurvedic treatment centers, when they subject patients to steam, they'll be sitting in a box with their head out because you shouldn't heat the head. You shouldn't heat the marma points in the head. So if you do use a steam room, take a bottle of cold water with you, take a little face wash or a towel, and just continue, pouring some cold water on your head so this doesn't get affected. Start something new. See this as the new year. Instead of January 1st, where it's winter for, half of the world, the Northern Hemisphere. Although the calendar year says it's the beginning of the year, we don't feel like it. We still are in the height of winter. We want to cozy up. We want to retreat. We want to introspect. We want to eat all the heavy comfort foods. We don't want to do a detox or a cleanse or anything like that. But now take your inspiration from nature. The tulips are blooming. The daffodils are blooming. Everything is growing, emerging. Start something new, whether it's a hobby, a project, exercise regime. Open and cleanse your sinuses. This is one of the great avenues to clear out excess mucus, excess kapha from your body. Nasya drops, medicated oil drops, are starting to become very popular in Ayurveda. The best way to use them is in the morning. Give yourself a little facial massage first, take some steam, and then administer the Nasya drops. And yeah, make sure your head is kind of tilted backwards, and you should administer them. And after a while, you'll be able to taste the oil in the back of your throat. This will help sort of bring out any excess mucus from your face, head, any congestion that you have. Clean up your body, mind, the environment around you. Everyone talks about a spring clean, and it's got merit. Start with your house. Are there things that you haven't been using, for the last year? Get rid of them. Go room by room in your house and do a spring clean. Clean your body, clean your mind, through journaling, through meditation practices, through guided breath work, whatever works for you. Find some way to sort of do a bit of a reset. And the best practice for spring is a cleanse or a detox. So in Ayurveda, there's a period of time called a Ritu Sandhi. It's the joining period between two seasons, when one season ends and the other begins. And generally during that time, there's a lot of fluctuation in the weather. There's variability. Winter hasn't quite entered, summer hasn't quite begun, or spring hasn't quite begun. And one of the best pieces of advice that Ayurveda gives is to do a cleanse, to gradually let go of the practices of winter, to gradually adopt the practices of the incoming season, and to help clear out the accumulated kapha and prepare yourself for spring and summer. So a lot of people, they complain of seasonal allergies, colds and flus, and they'll say, oh, it's because of the change in weather that I've gotten sick. It's not the change in weather. It's that we haven't responded to the change in weather. We're still eating what we were eating in winter. We haven't yet transitioned into a springtime regime to match the weather outside. So when you do a cleanse, you're helping to get rid of that excess kapha, reset your digestion, and prepare yourself for spring and summer. Because what happens is, if you think about it, in winter, that excess kapha around us, if it's a snow-capped mountain or something, it starts to melt in spring. In the same way, the kapha inside of us, all of those comfort foods, the indulgences that we've had in winter, they start to melt, and they come out of the body as excess mucus, as colds, flus, runny nose. So instead of just blaming the weather, let's use it to our advantage and partake in a little bit of a cleanse. This brings me on to the next part of my webinar, where last year I launched a Spring Boost course, and it's got lots of informational and instructional videos on the need to cleanse, to recorrect your digestion and prepare yourself for the new season, how to avoid spring colds and flus. I detail everything on how to do a cleanse, the dietary and lifestyle practices to incorporate with instructional videos, and more importantly, why these practices are to be incorporated. There's a whole section on digestion, understanding your unique digestion, how to identify the signs and symptoms of a healthy and an imbalanced digestion, what to do and to enhance your digestion, and how our mind works in the digestion. The cleanse isn't, okay, you start, eat this, and then that's it. There's an easing in process where you're gradually introducing practices that may be new to you, and you're letting go of practices that may not serve you. Then we have a cleanse period, and then there's a what to do after the cleanse. How do you go back to sort of normal life and normal eating? And this year, we're really lucky that Rima from the Grounded Yogi, she has added in a 22-minute yoga flow sequence that you can practice, and it's good for energizing and detoxing the body. There's more than 20 recipes suitable for the cleanse, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Easy to make, simple, nutritious. It's not, don't think of a cleanse as a fast where you don't get to eat anything. There's plenty to eat, so you'll stay full and satisfied. Lots of different handouts like shopping list, meal plan, checklist for daily activities, and journaling prompts. So normally it's £70, but just for the next 48 hours, it's going to be £56 with the code SPRING 2024. And I will send all of this in an email afterwards if anybody is interested. It's a really easy thing to incorporate into your life, and you'll feel a big difference. You'll feel more energy, clarity of mind, better digestion, and just more vibrant after you do this. So yeah, if anybody is interested, I will paste the link in the chat box after this, but I would like to open the floor if anybody has any questions. I see there's two. Oh no. Okay. Natural yogurt in spring. Is it okay to eat fresh fruits with yogurts? Oh, so one of the principles of Ayurvedic nutrition and dietetics is there's certain foods that go well with certain foods. And then there's other foods which don't go with certain foods. They're called incompatible food combinations. Dairy and fruits is one of those incompatible food combinations. So when we have things like yogurt and fruits, I would say a no. As much as I hate saying, don't do this, don't do that, yogurt and fruits, it can be a bit difficult to digest. Everything in Ayurveda is seen as how easy or difficult is it to digest. And yeah, yogurt and fruits together can be very difficult to digest. Fruits generally should be had on their own as a snack between meals, after the previous meal has been digested and before you're going to eat the next one. You're a Vata person, is it fine to do dry massage instead of Abhyanga? Try to do, if you're going to do dry massage, do an Abhyanga first and then do a little bit of a dry massage and then hop into a shower. I wouldn't do too much of a dry massage because it can aggravate the dryness and airiness inside your body. I'm gonna just paste a link if anybody is interested to check out the course. You're more than welcome. But yeah, if anybody has any questions, please stay on and let me know. Otherwise, yes, I will be sending a follow-up email with everything that we covered today, and a recording of this whole webinar. Someone has messaged to cover that I've mentioned to cover the head while steaming, but salons do steam head after oiling or hair mask. Unfortunately, not all of the practices that people do in salons are Ayurvedic. I'm sharing what I've learned from my previous teachers, and they've all sort of unanimously advised that it's best not to have heat on your head. It's better to keep a cool head than a hot head. What is a good plant-based milk yogurt to replace dairy with? Anything that has minimal ingredients, without stabilizers, added gums, preservatives, anything that is made with clean ingredients. Any books for the topics? Oh, I'll have to have a think. I can send a few book recommendations in the email afterwards as well. So you have that there. But thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Ever make some nuts and teaspoon of virgin olive oil daily, so stop the oil. It depends on your constitution. If you are generally dry, or you live in a drier climate and it suits you, then I think you can continue it. So I'll stick around for a few minutes, but otherwise, thank you so much to everyone for joining on and being a part of it. Hopefully you learned something new, something that you can apply in the spring season. And take care. Have a wonderful evening, afternoon, wherever you are.